First of all, I would like to nominate Al Ludwig for the position. And David, don't smile. And I would like to, I'm sorry, I thought you were smiling at my comment. I would like to nominate Al for the position and to propose that we look again at the two candidates in particular that were being vetted on Monday night. And you know, as I was watching this, I was thinking, you know, how fortunate we are to have so many good qualified candidates for this open position. And I have spoken to all of the candidates as well. And I know that we've sort of zeroed in on two in particular, and with respect to Bashir, given the circumstances of what evolved on Monday night. While I appreciate your being here, I think we kind of know that we're discussing Al and Dan at this moment. And I have evaluated carefully and I think thoroughly both candidates. I've spoken to both. And I think they're both excellent. But for the reasons that the president has described, and I agree with, I think that Al is the right person at this point, and here's why. Among other things, Al has been in the community for over a decade. Al has served on planning for multiple years. And Al took it upon himself to go out and canvass the community back in July and secure support and petitions to run for the office. And we were aware of that as well. We were aware of other candidates. And at the time, it was a very crowded field of 8 people. And one of those members of the field of 8 was disqualified. And then we began to look at the names and the people that were left. And Al was kind enough, and by the way, I do want to say I appreciate your sentiment, Al. I heard what you had to say about stepping away. I personally was taken aback by that because I really never felt that you were a particular threat. We're all competing for the 3 seats, but nonetheless, I appreciate the sentiment of that. But what I felt most was the graciousness by which Al decided to remove his name from contention, given the fact that he had significant experience and had a good reason to run, and apparently has had the opportunity previously, which I did not know. I don't know if anybody knew that. I wasn't happy about what I heard about that, to be honest with you. But that I thought that was a gracious step to allow the rest of the field to participate and compete for the seats. I talked with Dan Ferris, and I was very impressed with him. I've heard good things about him from my friend David Solly and from Angelina, and I've seen him in action. But he sent me an email on Wednesday. And that email, he asked if there was an opportunity to speak personally. And me being me, I immediately picked up the phone and I called his cell phone. And unfortunately, his cell phone would not accept any messages. And again, me being me, persistent, I called his office. And I got his voicemail. And I left a message. And to further my attempts to communicate, I sent him a text that I was available and that I was on standby and anxious to talk with him. I did not speak to him until Saturday. So from Wednesday until Saturday, Dan was unavailable, which is understandable. He's got a busy caseload. He's a busy attorney. He works for a large firm, and he's got a family. But that I said to him when we finally connected was a little troubling because communication is critical, and we are expected by our constituents to be responsible and responsive, and that, for me, is a very big factor. And okay, I'll admit I'm retired, and I've got a lot on my plate, and I serve on a lot of different boards and commissions and have a lot of responsibilities, but first order of business for me is to be responsive, and I am very responsive. So we had a great conversation, and I was impressed with Dan, and I told him as much. But I also told him that I questioned why he didn't run for the office like the others back in July. And I also asked him how many meetings he's attended. Hi, Dan. And he had indicated that he'd been to a council meeting or two. So I said, well, I'm going to be completely candid and honest with you because that's my nature. I think that both you and Al Ludwig are fine candidates, and you're both coming from the same place. But I feel aligned at this moment with Al because of the things that I've just described, his longevity in the community, his experience, coming to many, many, many council meetings over the years and knowing how we function here, and being a part of the Planning Commission for multiple years. He brings a lot of institutional knowledge within the various communities that he, as a builder, has relationships with. And lastly, that it was the president's wish that he join us on council. And I have great deference to our president. And so given the choice between the two fine candidates, both qualified, my view was that it was Al's opportunity for all the reasons that I've expressed. And Dan, I said, if you will be patient, I think 2 years from now, there'll be an opportunity for you to run for the office. You'll have 2 more years under your belt, and you'll have 2 more years of residency, which I think the minimum requirement is 2 years, and I think you've been here for just about 2 years. So you're just on the cusp of being available to be on council. So having said all that, again, I just think we have 2 great candidates. And the last concern I have is, for years, and I've been I may be the longest serving continuous member of this council. I don't remember ever having more than one attorney on the council. I think it was Ralph Sossin back in the day. And suddenly we find ourselves with 2, 3, and maybe 4 attorneys. And I think part of being on the council is a diverse group of individuals with different perspectives and different experiences, and business is a big part of that. And most of the members of this council have been business people. And it's great to have legal advice and legal minds on the council, but I don't think that we're in a position where we need 4 at this point. And what Dan brings to planning is lacking in the legal department, and so he fits well in that position, which is one of the reasons that I think he was appointed to that position. So,
Mike, didn't you say you were an attorney?
I play one on television.
I thought you said in a past life you were an attorney.
No. I joke around a lot, Abby. You'll get to understand that. So anyway, long story short, I know we're at an impasse. We need to break the impasse. I've been down this road before. When I was appointed back in 2010, it was a 3-3 split between me and Lou Eads, and it was messy and ugly, and I explained that to Dan and to Al, and I said, I hope we don't go down that road of debating back and forth and getting into personal things and why this one's better than this one, because it's just messy and it's public and it's unnecessary. So what I'm hoping for is that somebody in this group will align with the president and myself and appoint Al Ludwig. And Dan, you've got an opportunity to do great things on planning, and I hope that you'll continue to do that.
Did you just make a motion?
I made a motion to appoint Al Ludwig. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, Dana? Please.
Trustee Yates.
For,
It'd be
We're
for
voting
Al.
What's the
for
motion?
Al Ludwig.
no,
Trustee Hanson.
yes.
Trustee Solly.
No.
Trustee Salzer.
Yes.
Trustee Slappa.
No.
President Goldberg.
Yes, doesn't matter. Okay, so where we thought we were gonna be.
Angelina, let me ask you, because you spoke eloquently last night and with compassion about what you agreed were virtuous qualities in Al Ludwig. You had experience with him, he welcomed you, he invited you into his home. I know that Dan is a friend. This isn't a popularity contest. I would ask you to reconsider.
See, I don't think that my definition of friends is the same as yours, because Al's my friend, but it doesn't mean that I can't look at criteria and apply a set of facts and make an analysis of which of those facts reach the conclusion that is most aligned with the future of this.
But you did say you were
village.
torn. You said it was a
Of course
very
I'm torn,
difficult
but like I
decision.
wouldn't call my friend and say, please step out of the race.
No.
So I'm just letting you know, like my friendship is not like you have to be loyal to me and vote in my way. So I think that's where we differ, because I've disagreed with you on more times than I have not, and I still consider you my friend. And I hope vice versa, but doesn't mean that I'm gonna align with you. And I didn't talk to either candidates, or any of three of them, even though they reached out to me the last 2 days. And I read both profiles, and I thought about both candidates that I was torn between, Al and Dan, and what they said and what they offered. And the open candidate spot has been appointed to the infrastructure committee. Al has said he is bored with planning. He does not want to do infrastructure. That includes stormwater, sidewalks, and road. And that's where we're gonna put him. Back to the things that he's doing on planning. You all say that Dan is great at planning, and we need his expertise, and we need his leadership. Well, why wouldn't we then promote that leadership onto the infrastructure committee that is newly created and combined with all these different facets of infrastructure for the village? Then I looked up what Leadership Detroit was, which Dan was selected to be a nominee. It is an extremely prestigious class of of leaders who are in the Detroit region, sponsored by the Detroit Regional Chamber, of multifaceted people that are executives across the region that solve complex problems that have plagued the region, and looking for innovative and creative solutions in order to overcome challenges that are systemic in economic, social, and municipal areas. And I could not be more proud that we have one of those people in our community who has applied. And I think Al and I think Bashir would both agree with that. And hold on, you asked my opinion. Don't be upset when I did it.
I know.
And so I'm looking at what would we be losing on council? We would be losing that dynamic skill set. And Al himself has said that he thinks that downtown should be further developed. And I have confirmed on Monday that we can have non-council members sit on Main Street. I think there is a place for what he wants to do. And I think there is an incredible opportunity to bring Dan's skill set. Have we ever surveyed the council and asked what kind of bachelor's degrees we have, what kind of doctorate degrees we have, whether we overlap in our experience, what kind of education we have? Are we Michigan State? I mean, the fact that you said there's 3-4 people with Juris Doctors on the council? Oh, because we're all advocates? So advocates in professional life tend to be advocates in their volunteerism
okay,
and advocates in
okay.
philanthropy.
Okay.
I think the point that you made as well, that he was not available to answer your call, is extremely egotistical.
Wait a minute,
He
wait a
does
minute,
not
wait,
know
stop.
you.
No.
And so for
No.
you to expect him to
No,
call you
no,
back
no.
during the week
Angelina,
is insane.
let's-
I don't call back my
Angelina.
friends during the week.
Angelina, please.
Mike, let her finish. And then-
You had said
I
that
received
because
an
he did not
email.
call
No,
you
I
back
said it was a
till Saturday.
concern. Don't amplify it. I could go on about something that was said about Al not reaching out to somebody, and I felt it was disrespectful to be attacking Al the way 3 of you attacked Al. I really found it to be
Attacking Al?
disrespectful.
When did I attack Al?
When did I attack Al? I just said he was the most
know what?
sincere
Mike,
person.
We'll have to-
specific example.
We'll have to play the tape.
Michael.
Abby said,
No,
I'm
not Abby.
disappointed.
I'm asking, you just said the 3 of us, so please say what I said.
I think you were, you've come into this with your mind made up, as I knew you would, and you're advocating without reasonable consideration.
But you
I
said
see
that I
that.
attacked somebody. I'm asking you what I
I
did
said
to
the
attack
group,
someone.
I felt the group was on attack.
Who's the group?
David,
No, I'm asking direct
David.
questions.
I'm answering your question.
Okay, so
You
who's the
and Abby and Angelina really went after
Why?
Al with
How?
strong
Outside of Abby,
questioning.
how?
Strong questioning where I
What
did not see
question?
that. Well, I'd have to go
Angelina
back.
asked the same
All right,
question to every person.
here's where the attorney part is going to be problematic, because I will come back and give you absolute responses. I can't remember every word you said, but I did find it was very aggressive. And I didn't sense that with the other candidates.
The only thing the one question that I asked Al was, based off of your experience working with other communities, where can we improve?
Yeah.
Because the truth is everybody knows that when I sit up here, I constantly talk about the need for improvement, the constant inches we can gain. So regardless of whether or not the candidates get elected, I want to get that feedback. The same thing I asked Bashir. Hey, when you walked around and you talked to the residents, that's a potential loss if we don't ask the question, what were their top priorities? It's the same thing. Al
Okay.
came in and talked
Fair
about
enough, fair
what
enough.
he brings to the council, and it's
Fair
the
enough.
experience of working with other communities. How do we improve our community?
Respectfully, I don't think we can afford to debate this. I think we either have to determine that there's any movement in this group, and if there isn't, then I will nominate, I will suggest that we eliminate the 2 candidates that we're debating right now, and I'm prepared to nominate another candidate. Now, I've been through this, and we've done 3 roll call votes before we got to that. And if no one is going to move, and it appears that no one is going to move, then unfortunately, I would say we're at an impasse, and it's immovable.
We've been talking about this for hours. If this were an important topic for you to cover, why weren't you here on Monday? You knew we were appointing someone.
What difference does that make?
Makes a
I'm here
lot of
now.
difference.
No, it doesn't.
So, but your decree now is we
My
need to make
decree
this
is that I
decision
watched the
now.
meeting, hoping that we would come to a
But that's
consensus.
not fair.
It's
That's
not- it's
fair to
absolutely
say
fair.
So, Mike,
today,
real
right now,
quick.
I'm done with
Okay.
this, and we're
We
done
just had a
talking
vote.
about
No, I'm
No.
not saying that. The president is going to make that call, because he's
it.
leaving
You can't
town.
defer when it's convenient, Mike.
Hang on,
It-
real
excuse
quick.
me.
Excuse me?
Excuse me.
Please stop.
That's not fair.
I
You know
want
what's
to-
not fair?
Excuse me?
I don't like where this is going.
Excuse me, let me just speak for 1 second. I would just like us to adopt a norm in this discussion that one of us talks at a
That's
time.
fair.
And wait for
I'm not
the
gonna be
other
scolded
person. Excuse me?
By the newest member of council.
Mike, let me finish.
Okay.
Please let everyone say their piece and pause before we can have an animated conversation if we just allow each person to finish. I would also like to recommend that we limit our remarks to a couple of minutes, because we have a planning commission at 7 o'clock.
Right.
And we're going to lose 3 people at that point. And maybe not you. But anyway, please. So I don't know who last spoke, but have at it.
No, I'm trying to be productive here. I recognize we're on a deadline.
So, I'm gonna take charge here. So, we have 3 courses we can go. we can continue to debate and possibly reconsider the existing candidates. We can decide if we want to consider other candidates that have either reached out to someone individually or has actually applied. Or we,
Wait, can you repeat that, number 2? Mike said
I
we're
don't believe
only-
anything in the charter binds us to nominate only people that have applied.
But I asked Mike on Monday if it was open,
That was not.
and we all said no.
Those are two different things. The application process isn't opened, but the charter doesn't specifically outline the process for appointment. So there is nothing in the charter that's binding the process for appointment. Now, the council decided to go forward with an application process. We set a date when we would close that application process. But that was a decision that was made to open and to host that application process. It's not part of the charter that states that you have to do it in that way. Do you have anything?
Yeah,
Peter,
I
there?
would agree with that. So the charter does not limit the trustees and the president's ability to nominate and appoint somebody that are based on the applicants. You guys can go ahead and nominate and approve somebody that is outside of the applications, as long as they meet the eligibility requirements.
Okay, so why didn't you guys let the council know on Monday? Because when I asked, was there anything else I needed to study or review for this meeting? Is the application process closed? We're just going to review the candidates that had already applied.
I think, I want to speak for Meg, but I think Meg said we're not accepting any more applicants.
Yeah,
Because you
we're
guys,
not.
we have that 30-day time frame. Now, if you guys can't agree, that's different, right? You guys have
Okay.
attempted to try to appoint a trustee, but you guys have to do so within 30 days. If you don't, that's understandable. You can't do it, you can't do it. But you're not limited to these applicants. You're going to go outside of that. Nowhere in the charter does it state you have to select within those applicants. Excuse me, I'm a little groggy.
Okay, so we understand that we have the opportunity to eliminate the candidates if we can't. Like I said, I've been down this road. I know how this.
And you can
so-
open up again to other applicants.
Yeah, my suggestion would be in the future that if it's this same scenario again, that we wouldn't put a deadline for applications, because if we're continuing the consideration for who would apply, there may be people in the community who missed it, who believe that that deadline is closed and that opportunity is gone, despite the fact that it is open.
The only limitation is that with 30-day window, right?
No, I'm saying like, put it open with no deadline, and then eventually, or set it at the 30 days. But we create this false expectation on the community that applications have closed, so people may have not filed the application, or they may have not reached out for consideration.
Understood.
Yeah, and I specifically emailed the office when it was posted, because I thought it was a typo, because it was circulated the Friday before Thanksgiving, and it closed the Thursday after Thanksgiving, and I thought that was really tight. And I knew that people would already be out of town, and then you're like, we can only have it for 2 weeks because we need the application process to close so council can review the applicants and vote on it at the meeting. And so if that is the intent, then it should say, but there is still opportunity to nominate someone who doesn't apply. So maybe an application process doesn't align with a council appointment, if that's the case.
And with respect, could we fix that one later?
But that-
Because right now.
Yeah.
And that would be a council decision. So the application process that was put into place was the same process that the council decided to use previously. So council does control your own application process. If you didn't even want to have an application process and you just wanted to bring nominees, that would be up to you guys to do, because it's not aligned in your charter.
To be honest, I don't recall in the past, Pam, whether we ever had an application process. And when there was an appointment on council, that was because of a vacancy, when Tom Morrow left, when Brian Gordon left, and we in the council would reach out to some of our colleagues that we know and have been active in the community and active participants and volunteers, and query their interest in being on council. So I think the bottom line is, we're at this impasse, and my hope today was that rather than arguing about it and pointing fingers, I'm simply saying I watched the meeting, and it's unusual that we can't come to consensus. We didn't, and so I'm here. The results would not have been any different. I would have said the exact same things that I said on Monday as I'm saying tonight. My feelings about this are the same. And it's not in any way indicative of unwillingness to be flexible. I'm simply saying I think at this point, Al is the choice of the president and the better choice for this particular opening.
I'd like to jump in and restate my reasons for supporting Al Ludwig.
Point of order. Never mind. It's fine. We considered Al, and we voted on it.
I wish,
But that's
well, we've got a motion and a second on the table, we're in discussion?
No.
No,
We voted.
we already voted.
Failed.
Okay.
You guys
Okay,
are
all
having,
right, so I would say
We need
then,
to decide if we're gonna have movement on our current candidates, or if we're gonna go outside the box, or we could continue to discuss this with the hope that changes someone's
Okay.
mind.
I'm going to make a motion for Dan Ferris.
Support?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have motion support. So again, discussion,
Yeah, so,
Talk to us a little bit about that.
yep, and the reason that I wanted to is so I could open up for discussion. I think that there's a misnomer that I respect Dan, and there was a consideration of the word friendship. I think there is a misnomer of what the relationship is between Dan and I, because I was the one who initially brought the motion for Dan and have openly supported him going through this process. I met Dan at a council meeting, I don't know, 2 years ago, and he expressed an interest in getting involved within the community and being passionate about certain things, including pathways. And so because of that, and because I have always tried to recruit people and volunteers for our community, I took an interest to say, Dan, here's how to get involved, and I'll reach back out to you if there's ever an opportunity. An opportunity on the Planning Commission happened, and I let Dan know. He applied, he received it. He's been serving on the Planning Commission for over a year, roughly about the same time as Al has. Over that period, I have respected the way that Dan has analytically approached issues, and so when this vacancy came up, I thought he would be a great candidate. It has nothing to do about friendship, it has to do with belief in the talent within our community and recognizing it. And our friendship has never been anything outside of that. Every conversation that we have had has been about volunteerism within the community and about changes within the community. It has not been going over, I've never been to his house, he's never been to mine. The only place that we've seen each other outside of these walls is the Village Green for activities where both of our families are there. It comes down to merely the fact that I want somebody who is eager to get involved and serve the community in the capacity that I saw the first day that Dan spoke, and he has continued to do while serving on the Planning Commission. And honestly, that is why I continue to advocate for it, because I believe that our decision in electing him today is not just to serve for the next 2 years, it's to spark that fire, to have somebody who will serve us for, not necessarily in this capacity, but serve our community for years and years to come. Having the opportunity to shape the future for not only all of us, but also his vested interest of his children, where he's going to be raising his kids on this very green space. So that's really, I just wanted to clarify that it is not some prior established relationship that we have that I'm trying to bring him on. It is merely the fact that he was a hand raiser, and I continuously gave him a platform to pursue that contribution to our community.
and I would like to say, I respect that, and I respect you. And for clarification, I also have no personal relationship with either of the two candidates. I've never been to Al Ludwig's home. I don't know if you've ever been to my home, maybe for one of the FCA charity events. But, so we aren't, this is not at all about a personal friendship. And just to clarify, since you needed to clarify yours, I hear you. And I think we've all spoken on these two candidates, so.
The only question that I would raise for those considering against Dan is just earnestly, why not? Because if the next decision is for us to go outside of the candidates who are currently, or the applicants that are currently before us, I don't know, I just need to wrestle with that one more
Okay.
because,
Why don't you allow me to suggest the other candidate?
We
But
have a
at
motion
first,
on the
Before you do that,
Okay,
we don't
okay.
actually have a motion on the table. That's what David Solly just said.
no, I made the
Oh, you
motion.
made a motion, it's been seconded.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're in discussion.
Yep.
As I said, I have nothing against either candidate. I just, as you, have made a series of evaluations based upon the information I have before me, the experience, longevity, and history of the two candidates. I'm not indicting one for not responding quicker than the other. I'm simply making that as a comment because there was a similar comment directed against Al for not reaching out to somebody. And if you don't know somebody, you may not reach out. But we're nitpicking. So I think we're at the point where if somebody else has anything else to offer, if not, we should vote.
I have a question. One of the concerns I have is, I mean, regardless, if one of those gentlemen picks up the position here on the council, there will be a vacancy on the planning commission. As a trustee in this village, I feel responsible to ensure to the best that I can that each of those commissions and boards and committees that help run this village have talent, have the right kind of talent and skills to do their jobs. I've felt very strongly for a number of years that the Planning Commission needs an attorney. I think that we can't all rely on the village attorney to support the Planning Commission. My experience, going way back to when I was the chairman of the Planning Commission, is that having that helps them do a better job because of the nature of the work that they do. I am concerned about removing that from the Planning Commission, because to the best of my knowledge, there isn't another lawyer on the Planning Commission. And like you, I've watched Dan operate, and I think that's what he provides to the other members of that group. So I just want to put that out and wondering if you share that concern or...
So, thank you, Pam. My honest opinion is that coming into this community as a young, eager person to get involved, an eager person for leadership, I've seen when I first came and started attending these meetings that we talked about we're not getting new fresh faces to volunteer. There's another organization within our community that also struggles to get fresh faces and new volunteers. And in both of those experiences, what I've found is that when we create ceilings for young talent, they don't get involved, or they walk away from the organization, or in this local government. So I have a bigger fear about creating ceilings, telling somebody that they're better served on the Planning Commission than here, despite being super talented for whatever reason. Because if they're raising their hand to say, I would love to serve in this capacity, if we create the ceiling to keep them on the Planning Commission, we could lose them on both. And so for me, beneficially, I would love to retain the talent. So I have less concern about losing that skill set on the Planning Commission, and more about losing the talent overall.
But you would agree that that same concern would apply to Al Ludwig?
Well, Al said that he wants to step down. He's not even sure he's going to finish his term with the Planning Commission, so I think it's less of a consideration. He also said that he's not going to run in 2 years. And so for me, and again, I don't mean this negatively. I do not mean this negatively. I see somebody who we're lighting the fire under to continue for years versus somebody on their last hurrah for volunteering for the community.
Yeah.
And that's where my vote is going, is somebody that I have that sustainability over years.
You know, I share your concern about providing opportunities for people. I mean, that's the business I've been in for a number of years. I get that. Can when I have this hat on, I am concerned about the Planning Commission, the Historic District Commission, the ability of this village to have people in the right place doing work that we need them to do. That takes precedent over their needs to be as a part of the council, particularly when, from a skill set standpoint, we might be creating some redundancy on the council. Think about that. We have to function as a team here. This is our first big test. Can we figure this out? Granted, we will have a seventh member, a tiebreaker, but hopefully we will not conduct business on a 4-3 basis. I don't think we will, because I see everybody here as a strong individual, but I'm troubled by our inability to make some forward progress here. I don't want to have to support Mike's suggestion that we open this up and look at a third party. I think that's not serving either of these two people. But we need to move on this one, and somehow, because right now we're dug in. I'm unlikely to change only from the stewardship standpoint. And hopefully I've explained my position on that one.
Can I ask a question? What prevents this council from appointing an attorney into the vacancy that Dan would leave if he got appointed?
Nothing.
Okay, so we have the power to put an attorney on planning if you think that skill set is so needed. There currently is an attorney who is the council liaison to planning. So for your concerns, I think they're covered.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you the
I
same
don't,
question.
But I hear you.
Because you can't put another, Dan is a different, like you can't fill it with another attorney?
We could, but remember that there's a pool of people who are interested. We also recruit. That's a president's appointment that's supported by the council. I think we would want to look for another attorney should Dan move off of the planning commission, absolutely. I just don't see them hovering out there ready to drop in.
And they're not going to hover
I
when we.
actually I know somebody an attorney who's interested, who serves on ZBA right now, who wanted to be on planning.
And I have a question, because you asked me the same question about Al.
Yeah.
Why not Dan?
I'll say it again. I think that we have 4 similar skill sets, professional training, on a 7-person board. And that is counter to my feeling that we should look for diversity of professional background or point of view, experience in the village, volunteer work, experience being a resident here, and commitment to other organizations in addition to government roles.
Does Dan not have that?
Well, I haven't looked at his resume today, but my recollection is he's got good planning commission experience. Yeah,
His resume was peppered with community service and philanthropy.
in the village.
He's only lived here for 2.5 years.
Well, but you're making my point for me. I think for me, just
Okay,
speaking
I
for
see.
me.
It's longevity.
Don't let her
it's
finish.
residency.
Let her
It's
finish.
the opportunity, because someone's lived here for a while. I'm not saying go out and find a 40-year fossil to join the council. That's not it. But I'm going to look twice at a person with a certain longevity over a person with a shorter length of stay here. And that's given due respect to the challenges of being a parent. And frankly, it's really tough to do much else besides work and be a parent if you're going to do a good job at both of them.
Before
and you
I-
know that better than everybody.
Before I came on council, I spent 16 years in the FCA, 11 of which I was the president. And that's typically the way we have recruited. We've recruited a lot from the FCA. The FCA is a proving ground to get to know and understand the community. What's lost here for me is this. With all due respect, the president drives the council. And the president was elected with more votes than any of us. And it's his wish that Al Ludwig be elevated at this point. And again, he was extremely fair and complimentary towards all candidates, really. I mean, we had 4 people, and they were all eloquent people. But the 2 we've settled in on, of the 2, David's given good reasons why he wants Dan to stay where Dan is, and it's not a demotion, it's not an insult. Again, Dan could have run for an office and chose not to. So this is an opportunity for someone to join us, and I think it's time for us to try to come to a conclusion. Otherwise, I see this new council as riddled with problem, because we are debating.
I can't, Mike, I don't think that, all right, I'm going to speak for a minute. First of all, I've been listening to what you guys are saying. Pam, first of all, I'm a realist and a practicalist. And with all due respect to the 2 candidates we're considering, regardless of how this shakes up, I'm pretty confident we're going to be looking for 2 new planning commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think that's just a given going in, right? So this whole, who goes here, who goes where, with what we've put them through at this stage, however this shakes out, we're going to be looking for 2 new planning commissioners. So we're losing the attorney either way. So what I want to do is I want to resolve this. And Mike, I appreciate your deference to me as the president, but my vote is still only 1, and I personally prefer my trustees to be the ones that make our decisions. And my vote should be, unfortunately, the tie-breaking vote. And it's 6:15, and I want to resolve this today unless you guys want to come back in the next 48 hours to do this again, because I'm leaving on the 20th, and if that's the case, then, and I assume you leave, we'll be left to just 4 of us to figure it out. So let's decide if we are going to open it up to anybody else. Even though we have a motion on the table, and we can vote on that, and still doesn't mean another motion for the same candidate can't be brought up again. We don't, again, David, I personally, as the president of council, do not believe we need a motion in order to conduct discussion. So if that was the reason for the motion at the time, then we could all vote and then go on with the discussion, which I want to have, which is in the next 15 minutes, determine if we're going to come up with another candidate. And if we're not going to come up with another candidate in the next 15 minutes, then I'm open to going back to discussion, and let's just say I'd like to see what happens in the next 15 minutes, if there is any interest in bringing in a third party. If there isn't, or we're respectful of the candidates we have, or you want to have to come back again to allow anyone who's watching right now to have an opportunity to come at the next meeting, I can tell you that I have had people, I'm sure all of us had, so I have had people reach out to me and say, hey, would you consider me for the vacancy? So I do know that there are other individuals out there that are interested. We have a couple different areas that we can go to look for candidates. We can look for candidates that are existing in other commissions. We can look at the candidates that ran for current seats right now. So are we interested in considering outside this group?
I'm just troubled because, Pam, you said that if someone has a full-time career and a young family, they won't be able to give what they need to give.
That's not what I said.
Can you restate what you said then?
So we're not in court, and the relationship that I want with you as a colleague on the council is not for me to have to parse every word, because you're going to circle back and nail me on something I said that was careless or it wasn't exact. I'll paraphrase. That's as best as I can do.
Oh, yeah, paraphrase is fine.
Just so you know, you may not know this, but I'm a mom.
I know
I'm a
that.
grandmother. I raised a child as a single parent. I really know about what it takes to do that.
So what
Just
was
to
your
establish
comment?
my credibility. I would like, what I said, the spirit of what I said was, I have a great respect for the challenges of being a parent, Holding down a full-time demanding job and being a parent is really challenging and doesn't leave a lot of room to do a lot of other things. There are exceptions, of course. Some of us have enough resources they can hire a full-time caregiver. Other families have a grandma living in the house. But that's what I was saying. It wasn't intended to be judgmental.
Okay.
It was intended to reflect the realities of raising small children and how important it is that that's what you do at that point in your life. That's what I meant. Does that help?
Yeah, but the way it seems is that all of the applicants are here again tonight.
Are what?
So all of the applicants are here again tonight. So if you're using the small children full-time job to eliminate someone's
No, I'm not. I
commitment?
don't go there. It's
Okay.
illegal, and it's not anything to
Okay.
do with what I said. Please
Okay.
do not go there.
Okay, and we've heard from the applicant that you support that said he did not want to campaign because of the time he's gonna have. So if we're gonna go into sacrificing time, it's not a
I wasn't
good
making
road.
an argument of that.
Okay.
Al, did Angelina reflect what you said about, was that an accurate reflection of what you said?
Said excuse me, I withdrew my application because there was 8 candidates. And number one, the first thing I did was I called David and I asked him if he could support me because I felt between the two of you with your support that I would have a pretty good chance of being successful. David said he couldn't support me because he was going to support you and he was going to support Abby. And without David's support, I didn't think I could win. That being the case, I decided I was going to withdraw my application. I didn't have the time to go knock on every door in the community. I did say that, and it's true. I wish I did. I wish there was more time, but I felt that my chances of winning without David and your support were negligible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The last thing I would say is that I agree that it would be nice for us to come up with a resolution of this problem, but if no one is going to move, then in the spirit of timing, I would like to make a nomination.
Hold on, we have a motion
There's a
on the
motion,
table.
Say it again?
There's a
We have a
motion.
motion and a second, unless they want to withdraw the motion, we could do that. Since you had your discussion, if you want to hold on that vote.
Yeah, no, I can withdraw,
Because we could still have that
because
vote again.
I just wanted the
It's only,
consideration.
it's only 6:20. And we still have a few minutes. So, Mike,
I would like to make a motion to appoint Linda Hiller Novak to the open position. Linda is known in the community, been in the community for decades. She's a member of the Planning Commission. She knows all of the candidates here, has watched and absorbed all that's going on, and has come forward and said, I'd be honored to take on the position of trustee. I would like to be able to leave either planning or ZBA, where she sits in both. She's a very admirable and hardworking real estate professional. She brings a lot of great expertise. She's well-liked by all of us. And with all due respect to the 3 candidates that are here tonight, if we can't come to a reasonable solution of this problem, then it's time to move on to the next candidate. Linda is standing by. If we would like her to come in to chat, she's willing to, but I think we all know her, and she has indicated a willingness to step up, and I think she would be a great addition to council. Can I get a second to my motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay?
Can I ask a question? So we'd be losing a person off zoning and a person off planning?
No, she said she would be willing to give up one of those positions.
well, no, it's
No,
how.
give a vote.
It's a
To
vote.
give a vote.
Yeah.
So that leads us
Yeah.
back to the problem
Yeah.
that he had, which is losing people off
No,
commitments.
so be it. I mean, if that's because she serves in so many different capacities, as do I and Pam.
We can't worry about
Right.
what is the result of our
Right.
action.
We need to find the right person to
As-
fill this
as-
spot
as
tonight.
Angelina said, we have plenty of talented people, we have
Yeah.
people that have been trying to get elected. I don't have any fear that we're gonna have a problem backfilling
Yeah.
any of our
Me either.
positions.
So my concern, I guess, is that I was not made aware that we were considering people outside. Because again, in full fairness to the process, the fact that we had application deadlines, we received the applications, and then at the end, Angelina did specifically ask, are we only considering these 4 candidates? Yes. Do any of them have to show up? No, I think we already know enough. Granted, thank you all for coming again. That until David, you and I had our conversation earlier this afternoon, I was not aware that we were going to be considering additional applicants. So I guess I kind of struggle with processing that because I still have a little bit of heartburn over the fact that we're simply going back and looking for somebody else without having an opportunity to discuss with other people that we may feel should throw their hat in the ring as well. I don't know,
We can only take one candidate at a time, right? And I've been contacted by everybody that ran, as well others. And there are people watching tonight that are former members of council that would love to be reappointed to council.
so,
And so, with all due respect, regardless of what everyone thought, I did reach out to Peter this morning to get clarification. And knowing that we were at a roadblock, and knowing that our president is leaving, and I'm leaving, that we need to get this resolved tonight.
That
So-
wasn't communicated to the entire council.
Well, it doesn't need to be communicated to the entire
but,
council.
okay, hang on though.
But in the spirit of transparency, if it's not
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
communicated
whoa,
to
whoa.
us.
Wait. Don't start with that. Transparency.
Why don't we
If you
post it
wanna-
for 3 more
I don't want to
days?
argue with you about transparency.
No, okay, I was talking, so I'll finish my thought, which is the fact that, again, like, I appreciate that you reached out to Peter, but again, we need to be cohesive. So if it was, hey, if we can't land on the candidates before us, we need to consider, like,
David, we're not allowed to talk to each other.
no,
in
we're
a group.
not. That's my point.
Okay.
It's like,
So I reached out to Peter to verify what I knew and David Goldberg knew about the possibility of coming to a unfortunate tie here again. And because I've had the experience of going through this, I knew what the process was going to be. And if this happens, there is an alternative, and that is to appoint someone else. And that's simply what I've just put on the table. So there's nothing that's not transparent about that. We do not have the ability to talk in back rooms about who the candidates may or may not be. Suffice to say, everybody that ran has reached out to at least me. I don't know who has reached out to you.
no one.
Well, okay.
That's my point.
Whatever.
Wait, so
What can I say about
everybody who
that?
ran?
Mm-hmm.
So Anthony Schoeneck.
No.
And Chris King.
Anthony didn't really run. He just
Chris
put his-
King reached out to you?
Chris King, absolutely. Fred Galash, absolutely. Mark Hankey, well,
Didn't
Mark
run.
Hankey didn't run. Everybody reached out. And
they've
so
all
I
reached out
spoke
to
to
you.
each of them, and I told them my personal opinion of appointing someone who had stepped off council or won miserably, or lost miserably. And realistically, I don't think I could feel comfortable bringing them
Yeah.
up as a fill-in. But I do think strongly that Linda Hiller Novak is a fine member of the community, and I would only say, why don't we vote? Or who objects? Why don't we talk about objections? Other than you're being, I hate to say blindsided, but surprised. And I can only say about that, you've only been on the council for one term. And so this is not the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
So we've seen this and prepare ourselves for it, and I was prepared for it, that's all. No offense to you, but that's where experience comes into this. So,
Right. Which is
and I
also
apologize
merit
if
for
I didn't
me.
call you to ask you about it, but
I'm not interested.
You haven't talked to me about,
I'm not interested in that. What I'm saying is that if it's communicated to get us all on the same page, then again, we're in a better spot if it's
Yeah.
like, can be communicated, again, no criticism to staff, but like, if we do know that we've communicated at the end of the meeting
Yeah.
that we're only going to be considering four
I hear
applicants.
you.
Hang on, let me finish. And then after that conversation, there is further clarification that we will communicate or will consider people outside of that. We'll be on the same page if we have an email sent out just in preparation.
Just because we're bringing staff into this, I would like to say, those aren't, first of all, these are not conversations that I've had with council members. This is a decision between council, so to consider someone or to not stick to the application process initially and to bring in a tiebreaker, those are council decisions. That's not something that I would be privy to. It's also not appropriate for me to be commenting on any choices at all, because whoever sits in that seat will be my employer, will be my boss, one of my 7 bosses, and so I have to stay neutral to that. So staff wouldn't be the one to communicate anything. I don't know where everybody's head's been at. I've stayed completely out of this, as has staff, because this is a council decision.
right,
Is it your recommendation that we vote to not follow the application process
Well,
before
I
we
have
do
no
this?
recommendation. This isn't coming from me. I'm not part of this. I am neutral
Well,
in
there isn't a
here.
process. We don't have an application process when it comes to replacing a trustee. There is no process.
Okay.
We have guidelines, which aren't even a resolution. We have guidelines for our appointment process for bodies and commissions. There
Okay.
is no guideline, there are no rules established by charter, ordinance, or even suggestion amongst council on how this process works, because this process doesn't happen all that often.
Okay.
We have changes in commissions all the time, and our guidelines that we created for those positions, based on its inherent nature, already is a 2-month process. We figured that out from the beginning. So by its existence, we can't even follow that process. I don't know if we really opened an application process. We posted an opening for the position and said, if you're interested in the position, apply, and we had 4 people that apply. The knowledge, it was out there, and I think it was pretty known going in that when I won, that my seat was gonna open up. And when that happened, as has happened to apparently Mike, and maybe not you, but I had several people reach out to me and say, hey, would you consider me for the open trustee spot? And I told them all the exact same thing. If you're interested, put in an application so that we know that you're interested, and we'll go from there. Clearly, several of those people that reached out to me didn't do so,
right.
but that doesn't change the fact that there were other people that were interested. And so there is knowledge out into the community that the seat is open. And we had a public meeting 2 nights ago to discuss that matter, and if anybody was super interested and was watching, they would have seen that we didn't come to an agreement. And notwithstanding what Meg said, someone still could have reached out and said, hey, can you still consider me? Peter?
And Mark Hankey and Chris King and Fred Galash did so. So they're not among the candidates that we're talking about.
David and and Angelina's comment of this concern that we're not following a process.
Right.
And there isn't an established process for this. This is a unique situation because we are putting somebody into an elected position, which means we are now serving as the electorate. And that's a far greater duty than when we're appointing, someone to one of our bodies.
All right, so I made a motion for Linda. Was it seconded?
I did second it,
Okay.
and we haven't talked about Linda at all.
All right, can we discuss Linda?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've already suggested what I suggested and the reason for the
And let me say
nomination.
one more thing. And again, I don't tell anyone how to vote or act, but again, if you, as part of your decision-making process, have concerns that opening it up to a third person is a reason to not support them, then that's certainly your prerogative. But I just wanted to clarify, well, for the record, as well as the comments made, that we do not have an established process, with the exception of there has to be an appointment made within 30 days from the opening. And that is the extent of the charter.
Well, let me speak in favor of Linda then.
Okay?
I realize, I don't know who knows her or not. Linda Novak is a Realtor. She and her son Frank are in business together. They sell a lot of houses in the village. Linda and her company underwrite expenses on a number of public events that we have in the village. Her business partner's son Frank sits on the Main Street Board and is a great member. Linda has been on the Planning Commission for some time, and she was the one planning commissioner that volunteered herself to serve in that joint appointment at the zoning board some time ago as well. And I've watched her over the years. I think she would slide in very well to this council. And my experience with her is she's thoughtful, she's smart, she does her homework, and brings a different perspective than anybody else in the council. So I find that attractive.
Anybody else? Linda is one of the persons I had not had a communication with. So that one is news to me. Linda would definitely be an asset to this body. She's also a planning commissioner that we would be losing as a result. As I stated from the beginning, and of course it wasn't anything that I was going to not sway from, but my preference from the beginning was that this appointment came from the Planning Commission. So that still stays within that confines, and we would be losing Linda from planning as well as the ZBA, but that opens up other opportunities. Linda sits in that very, very coveted, if you really like village volunteerism, because it's the only seat that you sit on two of our largest boards and have a voting capacity. So that seat would open up for the Planning Commission. So I would have no problem supporting Linda if that was a means of getting us off of dead zero.
So I'm struggling with this one because, again, I love Linda just as I love Al. Like, I hope my biggest fear out of this conversation, is I feel all of us up here have, is that any of this comes off as anything other than making a hard decision. If it can feel personal, I hope it doesn't, because I respect the hell out of you. And I feel the same way with Linda, and I just I wish I would have had the opportunity to talk with her about what her goals are. Another thing that was important to me is an interest to run in 2 years, because again, it takes some time to onboard into this role. And so to just have somebody with an interest of 2 years and done, I don't think we're maximizing the opportunity of this.
And I want to address that, because you said that a couple times.
Yep.
And I kind of have, I have complete opposite of that. I don't feel that it's our duty to give anybody a head start. You ran for the first time and won. She ran for the first time and won. She ran for the first time and won. It's not hard to do your homework and campaign and run for council as somebody who hasn't been on council before. And we've had someone try who's been on council numerous times, our last 3 elections, it hasn't prevailed. So I'm not sure that it's our duty to give someone that advantage or to prop them up to be the next person, because the next person really should be someone that the voters select. And frankly, I'm not even sure, having going through this now for the first time, that I love how the charter works. And I'm not so sure that when this happens to a trustee that we shouldn't have to do something different, whether it's a special election or some other process. Because, I mean, this creates animosity amongst us when we can't come to decisions. I have grave fears of where this is on our first attempt at anything on the next 2 years, where this is gonna leave us. I think at this stage, whatever decision is made, it's gonna leave a bad taste, and it's something that we're just gonna have to work through regardless. So,
I look at it like this. We are, I can get Linda on the phone right now. If you want to talk to her, you know Linda, David. If you're not comfortable the fact that you didn't know about this, I understand that. But we've got to make a determination tonight and not belabor this, because this is really this looks bad to the community, to be honest with you. It's like when someone goes on Nextdoor and says ridiculous things about the council. We have got to make a decision. We've got several great candidates. They're all experienced and known to us. There's nothing wrong with Linda. And this is not anything more than filling this vacancy. No one can predict where we're going to be in 2 years. None of us know whether Al would want to run again after 2 years. He may or may not like being on council. Same with Dan. He may say, hey, after 2 years of being on council, I like being on planning better. We can't possibly know that. So I don't think any of those are fair litmus tests. And so at the end of the day, we've had a vigorous debate, and now it's time to make a decision. And we can postpone this for no good reason. Linda will come in here right now if I call her and ask her to come in. She told me she'd be available, but I honestly said I don't think it's going to be necessary, because I think David and Angelina know you well, think highly of you. Pam knows you well, thinks highly of you. And so Abby doesn't, but Abby's not going to know any of these candidates or any of these people, so she's going to do whatever Abby is going to do. End of the day, I stand by my suggestion that Linda is a great alternative, because we aren't coming to an agreement on the two existing planning commissioners, so it's time to reach to another.
I do find value. You said I find no value in postponing. I don't necessarily believe that to be true, because you identified several candidates, and postponing would provide an opportunity to reach out to those candidates and actually have a conversation.
They could come in right now. They're all watching
all right,
this.
well, that's not happening tonight, and again, that was the question, was, are we gonna go outside of this? And if we're gonna go outside of this, then we're probably coming back. So I'm going to call for the vote. We have a motion and a second. Unless somebody's withdrawing the motion, we have a motion to appoint Linda Hiller Novak to council. So if we can do a roll call vote. Dana?
Trustee Sulzer?
Yes.
Trustee Song?
No.
Trustee Gates?
No.
Trustee Salata?
No.
Trustee Hansen?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. Doesn't matter. Okay.
I'll make a motion to nominate Dan Ferris
Support?
for trustee.
Support?
Second.
Not right. Okay.
Second.
All right, so I think we've come, based on what I just heard, we're pretty much so comfortable that we're not going to consider anybody else.
Well, there's a motion and now there's a second, so we have to see
No, I
this
understand
through.
that, but
Okay.
when the new person failed and then we're back to one of the old persons, that I'm gonna take from that there isn't either someone else that would be suggested, or it's a moot point if we're gonna go on the basis that we're not straying from
Okay.
the people that are already being considered.
I
And that's
wouldn't-
just gonna waste time.
I wouldn't mind considering other people, I just want to have the time to think about it. Like, I literally studied before I came, between the last 2 days. Like, and, like, so many people reached out to me, to you, so many people didn't reach out to me. So I didn't talk to anyone between the last 2 days.
Well, okay, but
And you even said, who does Abby know? So she should have the ability to reach out to these people too.
Okay, but we're still in a position where we as a body know a lot of people that have been serving this community. And if you ran for council, it's your responsibility to do your research and determine who are the members of the community that are contributors and who are participants and who are sponsors. And this is not a training program. And so with all due respect, I disagree with that. And I find it outrageous that we're going to sit here and go round and round on the same issue. I'll bring out another candidate. If Linda Hiller can't win your support, then I'd be happy to bring out another candidate that reached out.
I think, so again, I'm not going to speak for anybody other than myself. A no on Linda is not, if we're going to consider candidates outside of them, and several have self-identified for you, I would like to reach out to all of them, not to all, I will reach out to the ones that have reached out to you so that I can have that conversation and make an educated vote. Because as of right now, it's just like, all right, well, let's villainize anybody who votes no on any of these candidates because you won't come to a conclusion. Like that's how it's being postured right now, is that we're being difficult because additional people want to be considered and we're going through them one by one.
I'm not
No,
considering
that's,
it yeah,
no,
I'm
no,
not
I'm
considering it
saying,
difficult. I'm just making a conclusion that if that's our position for the night,
yeah,
then I would rather just, look, I'm willing to try this one more time before I have to become the president. So I'm gonna try and let my council work this out one more time. And if that means, because we have the same situation tomorrow with our ZBA, we have a 7 o'clock meeting in here. If you guys want to do this one more time at 5:30 tomorrow, and anybody wants to communicate with anybody else that has been interested, including those that have applied, then I'll go ahead and call the special meeting and we can just end this right now. I'm willing to try
What
one
about
more
9 a.m. tomorrow?
We,
You have to have 18
we
hours.
need 18 hours to notice.
Say it again?
We need 18 hours to notice the meeting.
No, it will be tomorrow. It would have to be at 5:30 again. We would have to make it work. We would have to do it quickly.
Fine.
I'm doing it to see if there is a third person that we all as a group can be comfortable with, and we'll leave it at that.
I won't be able to make it.
You won't?
No.
Okay.
How about let's talk about the candidates that are a consideration.
We have a motion on the table, should we?
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
You want to vote on the motion that's on the table?
Or no, are we allowed to talk about anything we want?
The discussion is open
There's
right now,
Linda.
technically, to be talking about Dan.
I'm saying if we can't come to a conclusion, and another motion is not going to bring us to a conclusion, then let's talk about the candidates that have reached out, and I'm happy to share names. And if anybody feels that we can get a consensus on any of these names, let's do it. Does that sound fair? Is that, yes?
I mean, again, if we're gonna have to come back tomorrow, then go ahead and mention the names.
Well,
so
but
that those
Angelina just
people
said
at
she
least
can't.
know that you've considered them, and anybody else that apparently would like to be considered for the position still has an opportunity to reach out to Meg and let them know that they're gonna be here tomorrow and give us their pertinent information so that if we had to try and reach out to them tomorrow, we could. But let's,
If the discussion is concluded regarding
We
the
should
motion on the
take a
table,
vote.
then take a roll call and then move on to the next discussion.
let's call the vote.
Trustee Solly?
yes.
Trustee Hansen?
No.
Trustee Salzer?
No.
Trustee Gates?
Yes.
Trustee Salaflo?
Yes.
President Goldberg?
No.
Now you can open up the discussion.
Okay.
So,
Does the president wish to talk about other candidates or not?
So, now that that's off the table, and before I adjourn this meeting and call a special meeting for tomorrow,
Can I just interrupt one more time? Linda Hiller is here right now. She's,
how does Friday work for you, Angelina?
I'm not pertinent to this conversation, but I am not in town on Friday. I'm in
That's
St.
fine,
Louis.
and
But you
yeah, we
could absolutely
can do this.
convene without me.
Absolutely.
David,
Yes, sir.
can I interrupt to say that Linda is here? And if trustee Sally has questions or concerns, this would be an appropriate time to take 5 more minutes and try to resolve this loggerhead?
No, Mike, because that's already off the table. We voted on that. I don't think it's an issue of whether David knows Linda or whether Linda's qualified. I think David's position, which is, I can respect, is that we're sort of coming out of this in a weird way. We were on the record 2 nights ago and said it really wasn't open. Now we're on the record again and we're saying, I guess we have to open it up. The issue is, are we gonna have a time, is there a time tomorrow that works? Is there a time Friday that works? Are we going to attempt to?
It doesn't appear like your clerk is available for Friday, right? Tomorrow, okay.
That's okay. I can cover it, though. I could clerk if I had to.
Angelina, you have a conflict.
Sorry, tomorrow, yeah.
Are you available at all tomorrow?
Like during the workday?
I don't know. You
Yeah.
weren't available for 5:30. I just wondered if there was any other time.
Yeah, I mean, everyone should be consulted. Does this work? Yeah.
I can make it work.
Why can't we reopen this while we're here with the candidate
I
that we
need
were
to
just?
nominate. Do we want to nominate some people that reached out before the application process closed?
We don't have.
No, I think it's
Anybody can
yeah.
nominate
There weren't
anybody
any.
right now. If they get
Right.
nomination and support, we can vote on it. I personally am not following any guidelines.
Then I would like to nominate Linda Hiller Novak to the position. And she's here to address any concerns.
I know, but we voted and it failed.
But she wasn't here, and David's concern was that he would like to talk to
No,
her.
David correctly identified what my issue was.
The issue is fairness, not qualification.
I'll move to nominate Chris King.
Support?
I'll second.
Okay, interesting. Have you spoke to Chris? I mean, obviously Chris ran.
I spoke to him.
Good number of votes.
I spoke to Chris.
Yeah, I spoke to Chris. I mean, I spoke to him before our appointment process, and I knew that you wanted to pull someone up from planning. And I told him so, and I knew that was important because I've heard it for the 4 years, and I knew that he would have a difficult time being appointed because he does not serve on a board.
I'm going to withdraw my second for the moment. I'm going to withdraw my second. I'll speak to Chris if he gets a second.
I'll second Chris. He's got a similar background to Linda. He ran. He invested his time in running a campaign. He doesn't have he has a different background, but does still comes with a similar, background as Linda. I know he's not served in the community, but this is someone who has gotten involved and shown that he has the energy to be involved in this process. That's important to me. It's important that someone has recently invested themselves in
Yeah, no,
what
I
it has taken.
know.
Well, I'm explaining. I've been very quiet, and it is important to me that someone has invested themselves recently. And this is someone who is, also sells homes in the community, who is raising a family in the community. He is fiscally responsible. He's a CFO in his real estate firm. We just talked on Monday about having some pretty grave funding challenges in the community that govern, and how we govern. And that's someone who's got a skill set that could be very important for how we might work our way through that.
also was thinking about him because you said we have enough attorneys on council, you're looking for a diverse skill set. You want people to sit here, represent a cross fabric of the community. You're looking for someone who looks at challenges and ideas in a different way than we already have. So that to me came to mind, and that he wanted to be on council. He has shown that he has campaigned, knocked doors, put up signs, stood at the precinct for 14 hours in the cold, asking for people's vote, and went headfirst into a very crowded campaign and was unapologetically pounding the pavement every weekend. And he has small kids, and he has a full-time career, and he still made the time and energy to do so, and that speaks volumes.
I spent some time, and I have heard from Chris and talked to Chris, and I have respect and admiration for him. My slight concern is he hasn't been a volunteer in any capacity. He's newer to the community. And I'm really stuck on how we can't arrive at a conclusion about 3 members of the Planning Commission who really are more tenured, more experienced, and having another member of the council who is completely inexperienced, I think is a problem. And as much as I like Chris, I'm troubled by how we got here, because we really had a lot of thought and a lot of time and effort put in the previous candidates. And Chris also was not selected by our constituents. Now, again, he's new, not as well-known, but that to me is a little troubling.
He's a balanced person.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And,
I understand,
you know, based
but
on
I,
what- based on what we were told, we're staring down insolvency in 4 years. So my concern is what's been done perhaps is not working. So maybe we need a new perspective. I mean, insolvency is grave. So maybe having someone with a background managing the finances for his organization would be a welcome skill set to help us work through this. I'm trying to be open-minded, Mike, I really am. If it's a skill set consideration.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's someone who, you know, doesn't have a background that is very representative here.
yeah.
There's someone with a completely different left turn opportunity to look at the problem in a different way we don't have.
But unfortunately, he's not here tonight either, and we didn't really give him a notice to be here to further scrutinize and discuss his passion for
Certainly have
this. He
people that
did.
know him.
Say it again?
Well, we certainly have people here that know him because
Yeah.
we're
I mean-
prepared to support him, and
We just came to know him in a
Right,
very,
we have-
very short period of time. I can't say that I know him well, but I was certainly impressed with certain things that I gleaned in our conversations.
all right, well, then let's call the vote. We have a motion and a support to appoint Chris King as the open trustee. Roll call.
Trustee Solapla,
Yes.
trustee Salter,
I'm very conflicted here. I really wish we would have taken the time to talk to Linda.
do you want me to come back to you?
Yeah.
Trustee Gates,
Yes?
trustee Hanson,
No.
trustee Solly,
I think for the same reason that I voted no on Linda, I'm going to vote no here. I want to talk with the candidates.
Trustee Salter,
No.
President Goldberg.
No, I'm gonna vote no, because it doesn't matter. So, look.
Mark Hankey. I'll
We're in the
nominate,
same position. So I want to figure out if there's a way that we can get together one more time. Because I do want to give some of these other candidates an opportunity to communicate with us that don't know us, even though they've already been voted on and denied. But I do want us all.
Is there a time that would work tomorrow?
Yeah, just to be clear to the public, I am running the West Maple PTA bingo tomorrow night at West Maple, and.
why don't we all go there and we'll
I
vote?
was gonna say, it's the only event that I planned for the PTA. It's at 6, I have to be there at 5:30 to set up. There's 225 elementary school kids registered. So I cannot, be here due to that commitment with the PTA.
When will you be done?
It is 6 to 8.
Okay.
But we could do 4, if I can.
Does 4 o'clock work for the rest
I
of
can
council?
be there at
I can
4.
make it work. I can make it work.
I can.
Okay, that gives us enough time. We can go ahead and notice it. We'll meet again tomorrow for a special meeting at 4 o'clock here in council chambers.
And just to clarify, this is open to anyone. So
Right.
anyone listening who is a resident for at least 2 years of Franklin is allowed to be, correct?
And they own property, or their spouse does, and they are not in arrears to the
As long as
village.
they're resident.
Resident, sorry. They don't have to own property, yes, yes.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. Before I adjourn the meeting, I am going to call a special meeting of the village council for the purpose of appointing a new trustee to council at 4 o'clock on December 12th, 2024.